aerodynamics is much misunderstood. You can't see it, it's hard to feel, sometimes hard to even measure, but yet we're constantly told just how important it is.
Contrary to popular belief, the pursuit of improved aerodynamics has been going on a lot longer in the cycling world than just the last few years. But recently, every new tech development promises to save you watts.
Presumably then, we're now much better at making stuff more aero. But how much? We're going to find out. This is a test we've wanted to do for ages, putting a dedicated time trial bike from yesteryear head to head against a cutting-edge modern aero road bike. Have aerodynamics improved enough for a road bike to now be faster than a specialist time trial bike?
But this is no ordinary time trial bike. In 1987, this was one of the fastest bikes on the planet. It won the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia in the same season under its rider, Stephen Roche.
But then this is no ordinary bike either. This is the Ribble Ultra SLR. It might not have won a Grand Tour yet, but unlike the Battalion, this has really pushed the envelope of what people think an aero bike can actually do to make you faster. To find out how these bikes compare, we're going to do a good old-fashioned race, a proper tear-up here in GCN's Theatre of Dreams, a time trial circuit we've carved out of an area of empty and desolate wilderness in the south of England, known only as the Cotswolds.
Well, we didn't carve it, Highways England did. But anyway, our race is a simple one. We're each going to ride both of the bikes on an 8.55 kilometre time trial course against the clock. Although this course is slightly different from our usual one because we felt the gravelly, potholed back road wasn't perhaps best suited to something 35 years old, a bit fragile and a bit temperamental.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Ollie we were worried about, but the bike as well. Yeah, it's been loaned to us by Steve Grimwood from Elmy Cycles, which we are truly thankful for and we will look after as best we can.
We've not gone full Stephen Roche here because, well, we've got Wahoo power meter pedals rather than, well, slotted cleats, and we've got Wahoo head units, so you can actually, bike computers didn't have those in the 80s. No. Anyway, I'm going to give you some beeps.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep. Oh, 54, 10.
This feels so weird. Like, it's super smooth, but it does not feel fast.
While Sai is busy riding by the magic of TV, I'm going to stand here with the same bike and tell you a little bit more about it. So, it was made by the Italian Giovanni Battaglin, who himself was a Giro d'Italia winner.
Mainly it's my hand position. It's so wide, I feel like I'm riding a cyclocross bike. And the fact that they're so low means that my arms are really straight.
And it's a prime example of what pretty much all time trial bikes of that era in 1987 looked like.
Turns out Stephen Roche used 177.5mm cranks, which are massive. So my legs are at both the same time overextended and also about to hit me in the face.
They differed from their road counterparts of the era by attempting to put the rider in a much more aerodynamic position. And they did this by being much lower at the front end. You can see you've got this tiny head tube and also a smaller front wheel than what you have at the back. This one's just 26 inches. And this kind of geometry with the smaller front wheel is known as a low pro. You've also got these bullhorn bars here, which look quite strange compared to modern bikes.
Where's he gone? So fast. He's not even back from his warm-up. Here he is.
How's that?
Wow. Hats off to this bike, right? Of all the vintage bikes that I've been fortunate enough to ride in my time at GCN, this is by far and away the best example. Like, it works flawlessly.
Yeah, solid.
Efficiency, brakes. How comfortable is it with a 20mm wide tyre on it?
Yeah, surprisingly so.
But, man, it does not feel quick. Like, the main thing is I didn't know where to put my shoulders. It was like I was riding a cyclocross bike. Like, I just felt like my shoulders were just out like that. And all it took was to kind of go in the puppy paws position to be like, oh yeah, that's what it should be like. But well, I mean, it's illegal, isn't it? So I stopped.
So low at the front.
Whilst Ollie is out on course, let us talk through the differences between these two bikes. Now, unlike the Trampoline from 1987, which was very similar to its competitors, and it had to be because of the limitations of steel tubing, this Ultra is one of the most forward-thinking road bikes out there at the moment. And the differences between the two very much tell the story of how aerodynamic knowledge has progressed. Although, first and foremost, it has to be said, both bikes aim to put you, the rider, in a more aerodynamic position. This one is your typical road racing bike, so it's fairly long, fairly low, but nowhere near as extreme as the Trampoline. This is much higher at the front end, so that your arms can be bent and therefore be in a more aerodynamic position.
Interestingly, the bullhorn bars on the retro bike are 42 centimetres wide, centre to centre, which is massive for a bike trying to be aerodynamic. Back in the day, they thought that the key to being more aero was to go as low as possible. But now, we know that being narrow is also very important. And that's why on the Ribble, these bars are just 36 centimetres centre to centre at the hoods. That's why I'm holding on to them. But you can go even narrower if you want. There's a 33 centimetre wide option, which flares out to 37 at the drops.
Then another huge contrast, perhaps the biggest, are the frame shapes. So on this Ribble, there is not a round tube inside. And I know that because I've been looking. And it's for a very good reason, because whilst round tubes are structurally a really good shape to make steel as stiff and light as possible, they're aerodynamically really poor. In fact, so much worse than the aerofoil shape that the exposed brake cable outers on the Trampoline probably cause about as much drag as the whole head tube on this Ribble. But then simply making frame tubes into aerodynamic shapes was actually what cycling aerodynamics was like 20 odd years ago. Now it's about much more than that. It's about how the frame tubes interact with one another and also other parts of the bike. So for example, the front wheel, front fork, head tube, down tube area, and indeed how the down tube can then make the water bottle more aerodynamic as well. It takes countless hours of computational fluid dynamics. To arrive at these complex shapes, something that's only possible thanks to computers significantly more powerful than an IBM from 1987. But then that theory is then backed up with wind tunnel testing, something that was available in 1987 and was used by cyclists back then. But now we also have the additional benefit of meaningful real-world testing too. Now it's worth noting that these shapes can't really be made out of metal, not if you want the bike to weigh less than an anchor, let alone be competitive. I mean, the frame on this is just over 1,000 grams. This complete bike is about 8.5 kilos. As I said, that's only really possible thanks to carbon fibre. But the Ultra SLR has one more trick up its sleeve. Time will tell if other brands follow Ribble's lead here, but this bike is designed to be not quite as aerodynamic as it can be. And that's because Ribble's engineers have tailored the handlebars to create a little bit of additional drag so that you, the rider, then sit in an area of reduced drag, and specifically your knees and your legs. And Riddims say, therefore, that it makes bike and rider more aerodynamic by about 2% by their calculation. So over a 40 kilometre long time trial, ridden at about 35k an hour, it will work out as saving you about 23 seconds. And while some riders and some body shapes will get even more benefit than others, apparently in their real world and also wind tunnel testing, every rider saw a benefit.
If you want to make your bike more aerodynamic, one of the easiest ways to do it is to fit narrower bars. And nowadays, it's rare that any self-respecting pro would choose bars as wide as 42 centimetres. Coming up to the end of the TT, crossing the line. Now.
So you can see then that with all of these developments, it is going to be fascinating to know whether or not this bike, a road bike, is going to be faster than that time trial bike. Not long to wait now. Right then, moment of truth, results time. Ollie, were you faster on the modern aero bike, the Riddims, or this vintage TT bike?
Unsurprisingly, I was a lot faster on this. So power within a watt on both of them, 29 seconds quicker on this.
29 seconds quicker.
That's huge, right?
Over 8 kilometres.
Yeah.
Well, huge. Not actually as big as mine. I was really surprised because I thought it'd be way closer. I was 45 seconds faster on that one.
45?
45, yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe I did an extra lap on this, I don't know, but genuinely, it felt so much harder for exactly the same power to sustain like over 40k an hour.
That's it, you know, riding at the same power, but I had that same thing as well. The perceived exertion riding at that same power was far greater on that one.
Yeah.
I felt I had to work for it, like so much more. Clearly, like the aero thing is massive, you know, the tube shapes, not just the bike frame, but also having the deep, you know, aero front wheel here is going to be really big over the narrow box section one. But you know, I think another massive difference is the rolling resistance of the tyres.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. You know, that's going to be conceivably like 10 watts at least, and
yeah, well, 20mm tyres, as we know now, are not fast. The only aerodynamic aid on this bike, other than the fact that the cables run internally down the down tube, which saves you a minuscule fraction of a watt, this rear disc. Now, I don't know much about disc wheels, right? So has disc wheel technology improved significantly in 35 years as well?
Yes.
Okay, so how would you think this disc compares to an NV65?
Well, it depends in the circumstances of the wind direction and what the wind is doing, because in certain yaw angles, certain wind conditions, it is possible for a wheel like this to actually exhibit lower drag than a disc in certain scenarios.
What? You know, for me, there's a couple of other big things going on here as well. Firstly, how impressive is it that riders of this era, Stephen Roach, was able to go as fast as they went on bikes like this?
Yeah. Well, you know, when you tried to do a sub 20-minute time trial on a road bike,
yeah,
the top guys back in the 80s were doing sub 20-minute 10-mile time trials on bikes like that. That's bonkers.
Yeah,
Me.
they're significantly more powerful than me. But also, gotta say, it's no surprise that Greg LeMond won the Tour de France when he stuck a pair of tri-bars on this, because like the difference between riding a set of 42 bullhounds and like a tri-bar must be like a gazillion watts. So yeah, fair enough. But how cool is it that you're able not just to go faster than the specialist time trial bikes of yesteryear, in a straight line, but you get all of the other benefits as well. Like, we are lucky to be part of this generation who can just go faster for exactly the same effort.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I tell you what, right? I've enjoyed riding that bike, but I think if we get 10,000 likes on this video, right? What we'll do is we'll get one of the Lotus bikes.
Ooh,
you know, like the board material, because
yeah.
they're supposed to be rapid. Because I want to see if one of those is faster or as fast as a modern aero road bike.
So a UCI illegal time trial bike that was so fast they banned it against a modern aero road bike. Okay, we will make it happen somehow if we hit 10,000 likes.
Yeah.
Maybe Steve Grimwood from Elmy Cycles can, see if he can find one for us. Anyway, let us know what you think. Hit the like button if you want to see that video happen. Huge thanks to Ribble for the loan of your Ultra SLR. That's one rapid bike.
Yeah, I'm getting eaten by insects. They're like, I don't know what they are, but
if each one of these could hit a like button, I reckon we'd have about 100,000.